I'm going to rewind back to what we were doing in January just to start us off here. We used a lot of different technology. We took drones down there. We took infrared imaging technology. We took a litro-ilium camera, which I'll talk about in just a second, and 3D GoPros. I mean, we had a lot of equipment. We all felt pretty cool in the airport going through security. Okay, so I wrote a story about infrared technology, which I used at a bat reserve. We went on a night hike and had the opportunity to actually hold some of the night creatures. We had mist netting set up, and we were able to catch 13 different species, something to that effect, fruit bats, also some carnivores. But basically, I was using FLIR 1 infrared imaging technology, which is an iPhone 5 attachment. It's about $200 that you buy in the store. It's hardware, and then it's a mobile app for free that you download, and you just set it up on your phone, and it equips you to take these sort of images, infrared images. So this story was pretty interesting. We were out in the field with these bats. We had a couple biologists that were experts in the field, and we really didn't know what we were going to find from the infrared technology. So we were just kind of playing around with the technology, searching in the forest to see if we could see any animals. But what ended up happening with that is we found this Platyrrhinus vittatus, which is a larger fruit bat species that's native to the Monteverde region of Costa Rica. You can see this white stripe here. That kind of indicates a temperature change, which we didn't expect to see, that we would have no idea existed if we didn't have this infrared technology. So after taking this photo, we showed it to one of the biologists who said, "Oh, wow, look at that difference. I wonder what that means." So we are able, as journalists, to use this technology just playing around in the field and really helping some biologists figure out different science background of why this bat has a temperature change on a white stripe on its back. I'm going to turn it over to Natalie or Justin. I can't remember what order we were going in.
Hi, my name is Justin Stewart. I'm a graduate student in the photojournalism department. And I also went down for both the spring break and January winter intercession class. And as a photojournalist, my focus was on producing images, and we also had the chance to fly drones down there. And all of us, before going, we hadn't had any experience with drones, so we took private lessons with Bill before leaving in Trowbridge. And now, after this, we all are TAs for the drone class that he teaches there. And so on Thursdays and Fridays, we help students learn how to fly these. And during this trip, I got to fly 3 or 4 times in different places. And I got to learn a lot about how drones work and just kind of the importance of different things of them. Here, we're flying over La Casona, which is in Santa Rosa National Park, and it's a big monument in Costa Rica. It's where pretty much their only real battle has ever happened. And flying here, we've got a Phantom II and a GoPro fixed to it. And like some of the things we learned from this trip are it's really hard to get stable video, which is something that's improving with drones as they continue to advance. They have nice gimbals that come with them, which when we went down in spring break, we went down to train firefighters how to fly drones that they purchased through funding. And one of the drones they had was the new Phantom II Vision Plus, I think, which has a very nice gimbal, which they are now using during firefighting opportunities to watch how the fires, learn how fires are spreading, and they're also using it for more than just firefighting. They use it to kind of see where special trees are that they're trying to protect. They can locate them that way and better protect them because they know where they are, and they can also see what's going on in illegal logging operations. They can fly above and see if somebody's got a group of protected trees and things like that. And So they've got a lot of different uses they're using that for right now. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Helms. I'm a junior science and agricultural journalism major, and I was lucky enough to go with these people twice to Costa Rica in January and over spring break. So when we were able to go over spring break, it was the last week of March, and that's actually the peak of Costa Rica's dry season. So unlike here in mid-Missouri with crazy weather and 4 different seasons, Costa Rica basically just has a dry season that happens from about November through April, and then a wet season from May through November. And so one of the biggest problems that they have during dry season is forest fires. So where we went specifically was in Spanish, the Área de Conservación Guanacaste, which is the Guanacaste Conservation Area. It's a protected area of dry tropical forest in northwestern Costa Rica. And so basically these firefighters reached out to Bill Allen, who ended up bringing an interdisciplinary group of students there to try and teach these firefighters how to fly the drones well enough where they could fly on their own, and they can teach other firefighters or other staff at the conservation area how to fly. So we went down there with our goal to teach the firefighters, but also the 3 of us as journalism majors wanted to do journalism while we were there. So we went with the goal of making 2 short documentaries-ish, or multimedia pieces. Paige and Justin took on the responsibility of making one, and then myself and our other team member, Teresa Avila, took on the responsibility of making the other. So I will show that to you right now. That's actually a droney. It's a selfie that we took with the drone up in the air.
I got involved in this trip about 3 weeks before it happened, or maybe 2.5 weeks. I was in a meeting with Bill for my regular work I do with him, and he kind of brought it up at the very end. Asked me a few questions. He said, first of all, do you speak Spanish? Second of all, what are you doing over spring break? And I told him what was going on, and he said, well, we want to bring some students down to Costa Rica and teach drones. And asked if it was an option I was interested in, and I said yes. And a few days later, I got an email that said, you're good to go, we got some money, and if you want to go to Costa Rica, you can go. And I said, absolutely.
So, like everyone else that's here, I'm helping out with the drone training for the firefighter crew. And in my spare time, with what little spare time we have, I've been filming and taking pictures of the wildlife and dry tropical forest ecosystem, and trying to learn more about all of that.
Another really memorable part of this trip was the 2 controlled burns that we did. I had an opportunity to start one of the controlled burns, and that was something that I'll never forget.
I've seen fires before, but never ever that close, and not being able to cover them in that way. It was amazing being able to just walk up and down that strip with a camera, and being able to do journalism in that type of scene was really exciting.
Lives are sometimes lost because of firefighting, and technology like these drones can be applied in so many countries, and they could literally help save lives.
I really hope that at some point we can revisit what's going on here and sort of follow up with how the drones have come to help these guys out with their day-to-day activities, and if they're going to be able to accomplish anything, if they're going to be able to bust any illegal logging operations. I definitely think it'll be important for us to follow up in the future to see how this has helped them.
It's a really amazing project they have here in Guanacaste, what they're trying to do, and it's admirable, and I'm glad we could help a little bit.
Okay. So I'm just going to go in briefly into a little bit more of what we were doing over spring break as far as our methodology for training these guys and how they adapted to the drone technology, and a little bit of how, as journalists, we've kind of grasped onto this. So as you could imagine, a bunch of Missouri journalism students paired with Costa Rican firefighters. How's that going to work? How's the training going to happen? Literally, Teresa, who's not here with us, she was the best Spanish speaker of all of us. The rest of us were kind of stilted phrases, to say the least, and that's being kind of generous. Lots of body language, but we had a list of common phrases that we needed to learn for them: take off, turn on, turn off, you get the idea. But we were so impressed by how well the Costa Ricans were able to learn this technology in just 1 week. So we were down there, we had 7 trainers, and we had 8 drones. Correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers. But we had this large field to work with. So all of us had lots of room to fly with these guys, a lot of one-on-one training. And the Costa Ricans just jumped right into it. They were lifting up the drones on the very first day, very first lesson. And by the end of the week, you saw Arturo, one of the firefighters in the video, actually taking off the drones. So that's where we got them in just 1 week. We left 4 drones with them, which were donated by the Guanacaste Dry Forest Conservation Fund, which basically bought these drones. We flew them down for them and left them there. So these guys are working with a couple of training drones and then the Phantom 2 Vision Plus with the nice camera and gimbal that they'll be able to fly over and take footage of things. So they're already using this technology. They're already getting better at it. And like I said in the video, we can't wait to follow up with them and see some of the footage they're taking themselves. Questions?
I'll start with one and then we'll go around the room. You also talked about, with the drones, doing a little bit of experimentation with 3D video. I know it's just a little bit, but what kind of applications could you imagine either in that setting or domestically with 3D video on a drone?
So we actually didn't put the 3D GoPro on a drone, so we haven't played around with 3D footage from the air. So I'm not really sure how that would play out necessarily. We did, however, use 3D GoPro on the ground. One project that we did, we went to a mariculture, which is basically a fish farm in the ocean. It's a big net. There specifically, they were growing, I guess raising, rose-spotted snappers. And we put the camera under the water and had fish like going right past it, which was pretty cool. So we used 3D footage for that. And I thought that was a pretty cool use of the technology, because you have these fish that are coming across the screen and you get a lot of depth there with the fish in the water, and then you see where they're coming from. So like the swimming it was pretty cool to apply that technology. I'll give you guys the opportunity to speak about what you think 3D footage offers.
Well, for the La Casona video, we actually did have 3D going, but with flying in the air, it's really hard to get anything useful, because for 3D to be effective, to really get an effect, you have to be close to something, and it's very hard with a drone to get close to something, especially flying outside. You have a lot of dangers of wind and stuff, where the drones are pretty steady when you're outside because they have GPS syncing that helps hold them in place, but a breeze can come up and just move it a little bit, and if you're close, trying to get close to a tree, you're close to an animal or something, you could hit either and kill your drone or hurt an animal, or just you have a variety of issues that you're presented with.
I know at one point when we were trying to get video of the Casona over this most recent trip, Paige was working with the 3D camera and had one of our better flyers, Mohammed Al-Rawi, who came on our trip with us, try and fly the drone from a distance as close to the camera as he could possibly get it, to see how that depth would look on 3D. And I haven't actually seen that footage, but we messed around with trying to do that to see how 3D would look if we had a good flyer who wasn't going to crash, come as close to the camera as possible and back away to see how that depth would look on 3D.
Well, I know that you all are more familiar with this issue than a lot of us, but you had more freedom to do drone reporting in Costa Rica than you would have here in the U.S. And I'm just curious, though, that if the FAA makes it manageable for news organizations to be able to use drones here, especially in the science and agricultural reporting field. I wonder what kinds of applications you could see domestically for using drones.
In Bill's civilian drone issues class, one project that he has his students do is come up with ideas for using the drone in their own field. There's a hospitality management major who wants to use a drone to bring drinks to people poolside. There's another guy who, he's a graduate or PhD student in turfgrass research, and currently they use like a 10-foot pole with a camera on it to get pictures overhead of grass, and he was like, a drone would be absolutely perfect for that way. I wouldn't have to stick my arm out with a 10-foot pole and a camera. Lots of agricultural people who have farms would like to use drones to survey their crops. There's just an unbelievable amount of applications. And when we did brainstorming in Costa Rica on the first day with the firefighters, they came up with so many ideas besides just using the drones for firefighting that I never would have thought of. Like looking at for illegal logging or overfishing or surveying mangrove ecosystems and things like that. Were just, yeah, there's so many applications.
And I wondered specifically if you think about applying it to journalism in this area. I mean, obviously there's lots of uses of drones, but could you talk a little bit more about what you think might be interesting or exciting about using drones to tell science or agriculture stories as opposed to the firefighters or the farmers or whatever using the technology themselves?
Sure, I can speak to that. So I see a lot of opportunities in newsrooms, big, small, medium-sized newsrooms. Could you imagine a breaking news situation where there's a lot of traffic around an area and you can't get reporters on the ground? It would be very easy to take a drone out to a car crash and assess the situation from the air and really give your readers an excellent picture of what's going on in that situation. I see a lot of application in breaking news, and I'm interested in environmental reporting, so I also see a lot of great application for environmental news, assessing changes in the land. If you get an aerial photo of a land that's been affected by drought for several years, and you can compare that to other areas around there and what the differences are in the characteristics of that land after being in drought for an extended period of time. I also think journalists can use this to cover events where there's a large number of people, marathons, for example. I think there's a lot of different things that are especially newsworthy where you could use a drone and just give your readers that much of a picture of what's going on.
Other questions for our drone students, or our Costa Rican students, I should say?
So in Costa Rica, how often did they crash or hit things? And does that destroy the drone, or can they be fixed?
So drones are incredibly resilient. They don't break as easily as you think. And we took a lot of prop guards down there. When I say prop guards, these are like plastic cages around the propellers that basically protect the propellers from getting chipped or broken off when you crash them. I'm trying to think of a couple crashes that came to mind while we were down there. We had the luxury of flying outdoors, so no ceilings or walls to crash into, which happens quite frequently here at Trowbridge when we're training Missouri students. Out in the field, we did have one situation where one of our bearings wasn't tightened enough on the drone, and we brought it up to fly, and it just came right off. The propeller ricocheted, the bolt ricocheted into the field. We never found it. The drone just came crashing down, and even in that situation, the drone was fine. I mean, I think the biggest threat to these things are probably rain or high winds when you're flying. But other than that, you shouldn't crash into a wall full speed. That's not going to be good for a drone. But they're pretty resilient to just daily crashes and when you're training people.
Yeah, there's definitely, when you're starting, there's going to be crashes, and everyone freaks out and they get really scared, but everyone has to start somewhere. And so the drone controls are actually really, really sensitive. So one of the biggest mistakes that causes crashes is people are too zealous and will try and go faster than they actually can go, and then they'll lose control and crash. But it's all manageable, and the drones are, like she was saying, are pretty resilient. We haven't had any especially in Costa Rica, we didn't have any major crashes. All the drones were functional, and we had our engineering drone student, Mohammed, who could fix things. So if there was anything, we had Mohammed look at it. But yeah, it was relatively successful, and no drones were hurt in the making of this video.
I recall one other technology that you talked very briefly at the beginning about, but I'm not sure we saw examples. Could you describe what you did with the Litro camera and
Sure.
what you think, was the value of that or could be the value of that in other journalistic circumstances?
So the Litro Ilium camera that we took down there, essentially what it does, it's not exactly 3D, but you take an image, and when you take that image, it actually takes 140 images simultaneously, focusing on different focal points in your field of view. So it overlays all of these images onto each other, and when you bring the photo into the computer and edit it, what you can do with it is you can click on any area of the photograph, and it will focus to that point of the photograph. So I'm going to show you guys a photo that's very obvious in it doing that. So obviously here it's focused, well, see, that's essentially what it does. So this is, I think the technology is a little finicky as far as the display, but you can just move your cursor over the photograph and it sort of shows the dimension there. The thought behind this technology is that it captures real life more accurately, I guess. It's not a 2D image, even though it is, it just has more dimension to it. Caleb O'Brien was the student that really took on this technology when we were down there. And to give you guys an idea of what it looks like, it's like a black boxy camera a little bit. There's no zoom on it because you just take the photograph and it's going to zoom automatically when it takes those 140 photos. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, but it's really good quality, really good. So you guys can kind of see how it moves to the different focus points of the photo.
All right, well, thank you very much. Let's one more round of applause for our science and ag journalism students.